Hi, welcome back to Grow New Plants. So today I've got the Shumard red oaks that I potted up here, I guess a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to show you some tips on training these things. Pruning them and training them to where they get good strong central leaders, which basically means they're going to have a nice straight trunk going up before they branch out. Some of these things, I've got several different examples of different things that can happen to them, and I've got one example of one that's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So if you look right here, this one has got a strong leader going all the way up, and then it's got a new bud coming out right here at the top. And this thing, what it'll do, it'll come up, it'll grow, it'll put out some limbs, a few branches, and then it'll have another one of these buds on top, and then that bud will eventually open again, and it'll just keep doing that up and up and up, and that's how it makes each set of branches as it goes up. So this one is doing exactly what I want it to do. It's got a strong central leader all the way up. This is going to turn into a really nice tree unless anything happens to it, which means somehow or another this gets broken off or something like that. But right now this one is perfect. So I've got several of them that are like this, and I've got several other examples of ones that aren't like that I'm going to show you what we can do to help correct that. So here's one here. I'll tell you what, I'm going to move my camera in a little bit closer where you can see these from the top and from the front. Okay, so here's one here, and it put out, if you look right here, it's got the central leader coming up, and it's got one coming up right along here. But it's also got this other branch that came out here that's coming up that is almost the same height as this thing. So that's what you call a competing leader, is what I always call it. I don't know if that's really the right term or not, but it's competing with the energy for this central leader here. So you can do one of two things. You can take it and you can cut it all the way back at that junction right there, or you can cut it back short, and that will take, if you cut the tip of it off, basically that will send all this energy back up to here. And the only reason to cut it short and leave it on here is if you need more vegetative growth underneath it. But it's got several limbs underneath it. It's got these, so I'm okay with taking this one off short. So I'm going to come in here and basically cut that one right there. So now we just have one leader. And now that one's gone, it's not competing for energy for this one anymore. So this one should start taking off and growing up. It's got a bud in the middle so it can keep growing, and it'll eventually straighten itself up. It'll start growing up towards the sun and straighten itself up. It should become a pretty nice little tree. So that's one way, the one that needs to be fixed. This one is probably the worst one out of the whole thing. You see right here, the central leader died on it. So it fell back and it has nothing left anymore. So you got two leaders here that are both going opposite directions, but neither one of them are really very straight. If one was kind of like that, I would go with it, but this one really is kind of a mess. So really, I think the best thing I can do on this one, and I hate doing it, but I'm going to give it a try because there's very little growth underneath it. Now there's a bud right above this leaf right here. So I'm going to come in here and just snip that off. And this tree may not make it, but the thing is, sometimes trees just don't make it. Sometimes trees are just ugly and they never turn into a pretty tree. So I'm going to give this one a shot and see if that little bud right inside there will take off and start growing up. If it does, it'll fix this tree and this tree will be fine. This is one I don't really have a whole lot of hope with. So let's go back over to this one. This one's kind of crazy. It's got 3 leaders coming up, and this one's actually taller than the other two, but it's not as close in the middle. They've all 3 got buds on the ends. So they all got little buds on the end where they're trying to grow. This one is probably my best one. Fire department's going somewhere. This was probably my best one because it's closer in the middle, but it's not very straight. So I think probably what I'm going to do on this one is I'm just going to come back and I'm going to cut these 2 and see if this one, once it starts getting more energy, maybe it'll come up and it'll straighten itself out and keep growing. It does have another bud there. So I'm going to leave these 2, and then over time as this thing gets bigger, these will come off. But I'm leaving that just to keep giving it energy to leave some of these leaves on here. So hopefully this one will straighten itself back up. I don't know if that one will or not. Not a great tree either. Okay, here's an example of one we can fix pretty good. So this one, the central leader died, and then it put out this other leader next to it. relatively straight. I mean, it goes out a little bit, but it will straighten itself out. So I'm just going to cut off that one that died, and this will now become my central leader. The other thing I'm going to do on this one, you see this one right here is almost as tall as this one, so it may be trying to compete with this one. So just to leave energy in the plant, I'm not going to take it all the way off, but I'm going to cut it back, because all these limbs here will eventually come off the tree. As this thing gets bigger and bigger, these lower limbs will eventually all come off. So this one will eventually get cut off, but I'm going to leave it there just to get energy for the plant right now. And hopefully this one will start growing up straight, and it'll take that bend out right there. So that one will probably be fine. This was our example of our good one here. Here's another one that we can fix. So this one here, it's split. Well, I say that. If you really look close at it, this is your central leader all the way up. And it's fine. It's got new buds. It's opening up, putting new leaves out. So this one's growing. But it also put out a second leader that's competing with it. It's actually just a fraction of an inch taller than the other one is. So all we really need to do on this one, we'll just come in about right here, leave these leaves for energy. That will stunt this one. More energy will start going to that one. So this one should take off and grow up nice and straight. So that one will turn into a good plant. That can be fixed. This one here is kind of a mess. And this is going to be kind of an experiment, because this tree just really just doesn't look all that healthy compared to the other ones. So we got two things going on here. We had, I guess the terminal bud died in the middle there, and it put out these three little shoots. So I'm going to take out two of them, and from looking at it, the tree's up straight. This is probably the straightest one. So I'm going to go ahead and come here and here and take those out. This will become my new central leader. But if you look at this one's pretty big and pretty vigorous. It's probably competing with this one. So I'm going to come in right here above these nodes, where I still leave some of these leaves for energy and stuff. And then hopefully all the energy for this leader now will go into this one. It'll start growing up straight. As this tree gets bigger, eventually I'll take these lower limbs off, but not right now. And I don't know whether I mentioned this or not. So Dr. Carl Whitcomb, who I've really followed and learned most of what I know about trees from him, a lot of people will take trees. I'll give you an example. Say this one. Is they'll say, okay, well, I want to have a nice straight clean trunk going all the way up. So they'll start taking off, pretend these are branches. They're not really branches yet, but they'll make branches eventually. So you say, well, I want to prune it up all the way up to here where it's nice and clean looking on the trunk. I just want a nice, clean, straight trunk. You don't want to do that when a tree's really young. What you want for a tree to do is you want girth at the base of the trunk. For a nice, good, strong tree, you want it to come up like a pyramid almost. You want it to be wider at the bottom and get narrower as it comes up. And what produces that are these lower limbs. If you leave these lower limbs on these trees for a longer period of time, it will develop the girth of the base of that tree and make it a stronger, healthier tree. So a lot of people want to trim those off. As soon as they get a new tree, like a 7-foot, 8-foot tree, they want to cut all those lower limbs off and make it tall. It's best to leave them on till the tree matures more, and then you can start taking them off a little bit at a time each year. Just say if the tree grows 4 feet up, maybe come up and trim a foot or two worth of limbs off the bottom, and it'll just give you a better trunk on the tree. So anyway, I don't know. Yeah, that's the one, I did that one. That's the one I just pruned the top of that other leader that was competing with it off. So anyway, I hope this helps. It's just a good little lesson on training young trees. You can just let them grow and let them grow, but the longer you let them go, the harder it is to fix something. It's just like this is a good example of that. Hopefully this one, that it's still young enough, this thing will start growing up and it'll start straightening itself out. And eventually this little crook in here, as the trunk grows up, it'll straighten itself out and be fine. And the earlier you start training them, the better. So, and I'm gonna say one other thing on that. I did not do this initially when I first put them in the pots. I put them in the pots, leave them alone, let them start developing roots and stuff into the pots, and then I start working on training them. Anyway, I hope this helps. I appreciate you watching. Please like, please share, and please subscribe.